Welcome back, everyone. We're heading into our third game of the day. Rising Dawn Esports are taking on Munster Rugby Gaming. And Jamada, this is an important game. Both teams with 5 wins, 5 losses, tied in the standings. Although the last time these two teams faced, it was Rising Dawn that were able to take the win.
It was Rising Dawn, and also you have to kind of remember in recent form at the moment, Munster on a 2-game loss streak haven't really been looking too hot. Their only win was against another very struggling team in Unique in week 4. Beyond that, they have definitely been not looking the strongest. Of course, there are a lot of outside factors there, right? They've been rotating players in and out. I think it's definitely a bit of a shame because when we did see this iteration of Munster come to the forefront, uh, they kind of came out of the gate swinging for about 2 or 3 games, I believe. I think it was a bit tough, given the fact that I think it was 3 members that you lose at the same time. Roster shuffles in the middle of a split like that are very difficult, but we're going to start to very quickly approach the part in the split where these things have to matter a little bit less, and it's going to have to be about the now, the improvement that can be had at this moment to get us, into at the very least playoffs, because we're talking about the team that was the regular split champions, that was looking like the organization that was going to just be the uncontested champion of Division 1 in spring. We're now talking about a situation where they're towards the bottom end of playoffs, and, hell, even a team like Domino could sneak up, or Guap, with a couple of good games, if these performances keep on going, sneak up on them and snatch away that playoff spot.
Yeah, we're talking about, from Natives second, or at least before the games today. Natives in second, only 3 game wins ahead of Domino, all the way down in 7th. And for MRG, just 2 wins ahead of the likes of Lucent and Guap. So it is very close, and every game is still very important right now. And as you mentioned, MRG have had a lot of roster changes. Revelius joining in. We've seen Dokai fast-legged in the support role. Fastleg is playing today. Shackle in the jungle as we head on into picks and bans. And I think probably something to bring up is looking at both top laners. Both of them do like to play some more aggressive champions.
Yeah, and I think that could definitely be a pressure point, or a pressure draw from both sides of the rift, to be honest with you. So we'll see what exactly we end up getting in that regard. What I wouldn't be too surprised to see from Munster here is the very traditional Akshan Camille ban follow up after the Karthus is something that has been traditionally banned as a trio against Rising Dawn, particularly on teams that are against them on the blue side. But even when Rising Dawn are on the blue side themselves, you'll see those 3 champions removed away from Rising Dawn, simply because teams just don't want to have to deal with Vankstead, Denzel, or FireL on their key signature champions. But Rising Dawn will open out with the Yumi ban, something that we see very commonly on this patch, of course, on the red side. Whether or not they want to continue down that road, or maybe look towards some of Skewer or Harbo's more out there picks, we'll get to see as the time continues to tick.
Yeah, now seeing a couple of meta bans in the form of that Wukong, and as you mentioned, just ban away that key trio from Rising Dawn, the Karthus and the Akshan taken away. We'll see what is left for Rising Dawn to pick up. Now, something I want to get your opinion on, is it going to be Camille? See, now I want to see the Tryndamere angle for Denzel, because I've seen that a couple of times. And
so it's one or the other. Normally
yeah.
teams lean onto the Camille. I'll take your question though. It's gonna
Oh,
be
never
neither.
mind.
Go towards the Diana. All right, more targeting towards Fire. But what are you gonna say?
So I was going to say, in the games that I've watched from Rising Dawn, I've always kind of seen Vankstead as like the broken blade of Division 2. Like sometimes he gets these really good performances, and then sometimes it's just, what happened in the top lane? Question mark.
Yeah, Vankstead. Here in Division 2, we have a bit of a cult love for Vankstead. He can
Right.
provide some of the most entertaining plays. Whether it's him making the play or being the other end of the play is a debate or a discussion to be had. As we get a Lucia first pick here into Kalista. So I wonder if we'll just get like Kalista Renata in anticipation for a Nami alongside it. We won't. We'll get the volley best. So Rising Dawn setting up for a very aggressive, bottom side centric draft potentially. And especially on red side, that can be really potent because you're going to be able to get counter pick on mid in most cases, so you can secure mid lane priority in that matchup, and then have full autonomy bot, full autonomy mid, and then Munster are going to either have to draft to kind of just sit there and survive, or draft super heavy into the top side of the map to try and actually get things going. There's the very anticipated Nami, and now for Shkal, what will he look to pick? Because I think you either go down the route of something like a Trundle, perhaps, to try and match the early pressure of the Volibear, try and shut down the Kalista with the Pillar, or you go towards something a little more scaly. Things like Lilia up, Wukong is removed away, Viego is also technically an option if you want to go for things like that. Plenty of things there for Shikao. It's about what he feels like he needs to provide for the team and what Munster actually want to do into what should be a Renata R3 and, again, a very aggressive bottom side of the map. Hovering on the Viego for a long time, but the last second swap onto Nocturne is definitely very interesting. We'll get to talk about that in a second. I'm very curious to see what we actually get from Rising Dawn, and whether or not it's actually going to end up being that Renata.
I wish. This Shaco has been hovered so often by Rising Dawn, all the way from the relegation series, and I've been wishing every single time that it gets locked in, but it never does. In the end, it is that Renata that you talked about, Jamada, pairing up with this Kalista in the bottom lane.
Yeah, and this is one of the combinations that rose to prominence at the very start of the durability patch when Nami Lucian came in as, despite, the durability patch making everybody tankier, a little bit harder to dive, still this premier combo that was kind of able to shut down the early scaling that people were trying to go for because of the slower paced games. Renata, alongside this Kalista, kind of came in as just basically the strongest answer and eventually one of the strongest duos on the patch in general. It's definitely rose to prominence over in the LPL. We start to see it now more globally. But along to the opposite side for this Nocturne pick, though, because Nocturne shouldn't, in theory, really be able to contest the early pressure that the likes of Volibear can put down, but it's about that level 6 mark. Paranoia, once that comes in, looking for global plays, maybe looking to shut down plays as they try to be made on the opposite side for Rising Dawn, or maybe you get Skewer a positive matchup in the end and you just try and heavily bully out wherever Vangstead is on. Definitely a very strong choice. If you remove away Vangstead's comfort picks, he starts to default to the tanks, the things like the Ornn, like the Gnar, which, given the correct matchup, can definitely be bullied and scaled on.
Now, something else I do want to bring up is looking towards Harbo and Denzel, because over the 10 games that they have played so far in Division 2, 9 unique champions for both of them. So for Denzel, he's played the Akshan twice, and for Harbo, he's played the Silas twice. So I'm interested to see whether we're going to be seeing another duplicate coming through, or maybe extending their champion ocean at this point even further.
Yeah, and I'll let you track that one, as, like you say, 9 unique champions on either side. It's a lot of champions to have played. My memory is not that good to remember that many, unfortunately. So we'll see.
I'm lucky. I've got them written down in front of me.
You've got them written down in front of you, I know. So it seems like Rising Dawn going to do what I would definitely consider one of the smarter moves here. Go for the top lane, and one of the best top lanes you can have with Renata and Kalista is that Gangplank. They swap over last second to the Silas, though, which is definitely a pretty interesting choice to me, because I feel like now, if you're Munster, you probably are looking at that Gangplank as a pretty strong option for yourself, because you provide a global to try and shut down some of the dives once you hit level 6. Obviously, pre-level 6 is going to be a little bit troublesome for Munster if Rising Dawn get things going super early, but I think Gangplank just does such a good job at shutting down Kalista, stopping her from effectively being a champion in many instances in those mid to late game team fights, and Munster are just going to agree. I think, honestly, Rising Dawn showing their hand, showing their mid lane at R4 here, a bit of a blunder for what you're probably, your fairly telegraphed game plan is. And not only that, you ban away some of the global mid laners. There's technically 3. We saw Harbo already on Tuesday pull out a pretty strong Rise performance despite the result. So let's see what exactly Munster are going to use to try and shut down Rising Dawn. I think either, the likes of the Rise or the Azir, perfectly fine, because both of those picks should secure lane priority in most matchups that they go into. And of course, knowing that it's probably the Silas here for Denzel kind of just gives them, freedom of choice on what they exactly want.
And it is the Azir that is locked in. So for both mid laners, they are playing a champion that they have previously played. And now the question is, what do Rising Dawn, what does Vangstead want to play into this Gangplank? Is it going to get locked? It is.
It's a strong matchup for the Riven side. It's definitely a matchup that, Gangplank can struggle in the earlier stages. I'll get to talk about it a little more in depth once we start to, get onto the Rift and such. But I think for Munster, very strong bottom side, double global between the Nocturne and the Cannon Barrage. It does set up for being able to potentially shut down what I initially thought Rising Dawn were going to be going for, with, hyper aggressive bottom side, strong ganking and diving jungler with mid lane priority. Instead, they go for the Silas on R4 and then give Vangstead R5. It gives them a little more flexibility in terms of being able to play to either side of the map. I am definitely curious about the scaling. However, it's a very short range composition, which doesn't inherently scale super hard into the late game. So when I look at picks like Azir, like Gangplank, who typically shred short range carries and short range champions, I'm a little bit worried for Rising Dawn if they don't get a snowball going. But I think knowing Rising Dawn, they're going to throw everything in the kitchen sink to try and get a snowball going. And I expect that Munster will be expecting this and try to shut that down, whichever side of the map it is that Rising Dawn tried to attack.
I'm glad you bring up the kitchen sink, because for Rising Dawn, I'm looking at FatRL on this volley bear, and I kind of see like every lane is just heaven for him to gank. Like, it feels like he's got so many opportunities, whereas when I look at the side of MRG, I feel like it's more a case of Nocturne's going to hit 6 and then maybe just look to counter gank at that point, or do you think there is a specific lane that he wants to be focused towards?
I think once he does hit level 6, trying to shut down the Kalista and Renard, they both kind of band-aid each other a lot, which is what also makes Kalista and Renard quite oppressive. One thing that you would over the years quite commonly see is, you know, Kalista would get super close to lethal and then die, whether it's like right before she hits Rend or whatever it is. That's what we often see out of a lot of Kalista lanes. What does Bailout do? It kind of fixes that problem. It keeps her alive for an extra 2-3 seconds, the opportunity to potentially get a reset. But not only that, Renard, as sort of a pseudo enchanter engage champion to a point, you know, is a squishy champion, is a champion that can get picked on by engage. What does Kalista ultimate do? Effectively just takes her out of that situation as long as Kalista's close enough. And not only that, it can very commonly be used as a setup for Renard's ultimate, right? Kalista ult into knock up into Renard ultimate. Everything kind of just works like a very nice ebb and flow. I've lost the original point, but that's why Kalista and Renard are so strong. I'm sorry, my brain today has been scrambled. Thankfully, I'm being safe by the fact that we're onto Summoner's Rift.
I would make the volley bear sound that police volley bear makes, but I honestly can't do it. I don't think my vocals are capable of it.
Funnily enough, I actually have a bunch of sirens going off outside. I'm not.
Oh, do you?
Sure why. Yeah.
Well, turn up the gain on your mic then.
I'm not going to, but it's funny that we have the police volley bear skin.
Okay, so I believe I was promised some details from the Gangplank expert himself, because we had learning Gangplank with Jamada in Game 2. Now we get to have...
Game 2.
Well...
Yeah, Game 1,
depends,
technically Game 2,
Game 1.
You know,
Game 1.5. So now in Game 2.5, we get learning Gangplank with Jamada version 2.
Yeah, so, okay. If, you know, I feel like I have enough Gangplank knowledge to, like, write a matchups guide. And if you know, like, I'm not sure if you've ever seen those champion matchup guides before, like, the ones where the OTPs will literally go through every single matchup, even the ones...
I remember, like, one for Ari on, like, MOBA Fire.
I assume... Oh, that must have been Nightmare's guide, then I assume.
Yeah.
But, like, I would probably put Riven as genuinely a solid 8 or a 9. Like, it is typically very, very troublesome to lane into this champion. You have to kind of just play for farm and pray you don't get dove. Especially at level 6, all it really takes is one bad misstep, and you can very quickly and very easily get 100 zeroed. In the early stages, though, you can try and play for grasp stacks, try and play for some shorter trades. Trying to get barrels and Q poke in general to stick is pretty hard, because Riven can start E. I can't remember what the short dash is called. Don't see Riven actually often.
I should know this.
Valor.
Can't it read? See, I thought I had a chance to flex some skills for a second, but Ree was like, nah, I'm just showing all you guys straight away.
Yeah, so this is the thing. Those Riven trades can be a little bit rough. Skewer is just getting the better end, though. Instead, Flash.
He's flashing forward with a parlay.
Wow.
Oh, minion auto? Oh my god.
No,
Skewer.
Okay, like, so I said this on Tuesday, right? Because one of the few windows that you can find a bit of an opportunity is at level 1 with Q-Poke. Now, in this case, Bankstead took a bit of a poor trade. At level 1, they both ticked level 2, and then Skewer was able to just find the extended trade with the barrels. But Skewer just seems to have such a good understanding of his damage and lethal ranges in the early stages on Gangplank. He's just so... I don't know, he just limit tests so well, is the most polite way I'll put it. He just comes out ahead yet again. And First Blood, meaning that he picks up the longsword and the cloth armor. Not quite the sheen, which is going to feel a little bit bad, but getting the combat stats to try and trade into this Riven is really going to feel good. Moving into the replay here. And you can see Vankstead just goes in, bone plating gets procced. It does shut down a lot of the, trading damage, almost 60-ish damage, I think, just from the early trade. But Vankstead just doesn't win out on the battle here. And as soon as he loses that, he is pretty much just dead to rights. Auto Q flash. Really good from Skewer, and just those minions.
Potions.
Oh, yeah, it's the potion ticks in particular. This is why, kids, you drink your potions when you're fighting.
Yeah.
Me and Viperoon have many a times brought this one up. Not just on Div 2, but also on Div 1.
Is this
Very, very
speaking
important.
from past experience in solo queue games?
Oh, yeah, that is also true.
Either way,
I mean,
a solid start for Skewer, and he's starting to make a habit of this because he did this against Super Big Fun
Irelia,
on
which
Tuesday.
is arguably an even harder matchup, to be honest with you. So it's absolutely absurd that he's able to do it 2 games in a row. We'll see what he can actually get done. Again, level 6, like, I've had situations like this, speaking from first-hand experience, where, you know, I level 1, level 2 killer him because they misstep and I get, you know, kind of a cheeky barrel win there, as Skewer doesn't quite get a cheeky barrel win there. And then all of a sudden she hits 6 and she kind of just auto wins the trades from there and the all-in because you just don't have access to that level of damage in the game.
Yeah,
We'll
I
see
think
what
I had
Mindset can do.
something. I think I had something similar lately because I tried to play top lane, you know, trying to improve at the game kind of thing. And I had a Gwen against Darius matchup, and I managed to get first blood, so I was really happy. But then I forgot that I was still playing against the Darius and then died like 4 times in a row after, so.
Yeah.
Do be like
Laning
that
against
sometimes.
Darius sucks.
Either way,
That's
first
my
blood then.
takeaway. Sorry.
I mean, I just find half the top laners suck. Like, I just wish I could just ban all of them, like Darius, Urgot. Yeah, I just can't deal with any of them.
Urgot's
To be honest.
alright. I feel like the thing, even if you're playing a melee champion, you can normally survive in all of Urgot lanes.
Probably, but you're not understanding one important thing, Jamada. I have no idea how to play top lane.
Ah, alright, that's definitely something Kai did not take into account.
However, I mean, it's just that 1 kill, but despite that, Skewer hasn't been able to get any significant CS lead, both of them teleporting back into lane pretty much straight away after, and we haven't had a chance to see Fat IRL playing aggressively just yet. He's starting to hover around the bottom side, which is where we expected Fat IRL to be looking once we saw the drafts being completed.
I think now, if we look towards the bottom side of the map, Rising Dawn finally able to utilize some of the pressure from this Kalista Renata lane. Nami Lucian holding its own well enough, but still down 10 CS. Fire will pick up this dragon. Actually, in the mid lane, Denzel blew his flash. I think there was gank attempt from Harbo as his Emperor's Divide is down, and Skewer is aggressively using the Cannon Barrage to try and all-in Bankstead here, but he set up for
Shackle's
Shakal.
here too. I think Bankstead is just try to get as many minions as you can and then die. Use Blade of the XR, but Shackle is having absolutely none of it. And Bankstead will take their second death of the game.
Yeah, and that's a really great gank timing. The only real positive here for Bankstead is that he basically cleaned up the entire wave before this death, so we'll at the very least walk away happy on that front. Skewer will pick up 1 plate, probably just with the Demolish proc, and then go to reset. And now, with the Sheen, we'll have some slightly more positive trades, but again, the power of Riven does mean that, you know, all it takes is 1 poor misstep from Skewer. He's not exactly super far ahead in this matchup just yet. Or enough, actually, and okay, I'll take it back.
Oh, he got the boots as well.
He got boots and Sheen. Maybe the trade's going to be a bit difficult now that Bankstead doesn't have even tier 1 boots himself. We'll see, and I mean, honestly, I'm not going to even underestimate Skewer's ability to play out these lane phases, to be honest with you, after Tuesday and today.
So, I feel like this is just going to be disgusting to rewatch. Oh no, this is how Denzel lost his flash.
Yeah, so I think Harbo just goes for the Emperor's Divide, or Denzel. Oh, Denzel goes a little bit too far forward and gets shuffled underneath the tower, so has to lose his flash there. And then how does this initial fight start? Because it looks like Skewer's just shoving in the wave, and maybe Bankstead gets a little bit aggressive on the barrel trade.
I know there was a Cannon Barrage drop, so it was like level 6. I mean, he only takes 1 tick of the Cannon Barrage.
So I think what Skewer was maybe scared of here is that Bankstead, despite this wave being stacked up quite heavily, is that Bankstead would hit level 6 mid-trade and then actually commit for an all-in. So drops the Cannon Barrage. It does actually help that wave shove in a little bit faster than maybe Bankstead was anticipating, and because of that, the wave is stacked up, crashes, and Shakal is just able to effectively get a free dive. But again, Bankstead still picks up most of the CS. As you can see, he's actually pretty much dead even with Skewer at the moment in that CS department, so he's not even going to be feeling too poorly about that, as FireOut moves from one objective to the other. He's on this Herald at the moment, but definitely known to Munster because that Herald is being taken on top of that Skull Shrine, and Harbo's just going to force them both away. But Denzel does sneak away that Paranoia, so maybe some kind of response can be had. But Munster, they full rotated. Limitless is going to stay on the bottom side. It looks like Fine Forever is going to move up. So maybe we see some kind of contest from Rising Dawn, but it seems unlikely at the moment, given the commitments from Rising Dawn to just leave Limitless on the bottom side.
Well, it's going to be a couple of free plates for Limitless, and it looks like Rising Dawn don't want to contest this Rift Herald, it seems, unless Denzel wants to have a go at Rufelius. Fat Arrow just comes by, you know, just to see the Rift Herald being taken before his eyes. So, very sad time for Fat Arrow. But for MRG, they're able to get their first objective of the game, and they can look to drop that down somewhere. Skewer, he sees Limitless on this tower, and he's going to drop the cannon barrage to stop any plate-taking activities occurring.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that actually stops him from getting an additional plate is kind of big, because now Rising Dawn, with no Herald in their back pocket, just means that they haven't been able to trade evenly with what the base value of a Herald should get you on one charge. So Munster went out with Skewer's Cannon Barrage. He's going to have to be a little bit careful in his own lane now, just because, of course, you've seen him use the Cannon Barrage defensively once. It can definitely be a strong tool to stop Riven from inning you, rather. But you definitely want to, more times than not, be using the Gangplank Ultimate to influence skirmishes and team fights for your team, as opposed to your own lane. That's an ultimate being dropped. Paranoia as well. I'm not
But
actually
who's
sure
Paranoia, is it?
I would imagine it's Denzel's, as it just times out. Maybe just trying to force away Lucian, as he was trying to get a little bit of pressure down onto Limitless. But Shkal still has his. 10 minutes into the game. Haven't actually seen a Paranoia play come out yet. I wonder where it will eventually come.
I feel like Rising Dawn haven't really played too aggressive apart from Vangstead, so maybe he hasn't had... Well, I say Vangstead. Vangstead's getting run down as he... I'm trying to wonder how he ended up there. Okay, so I'm guessing he had a wave, crashed it in, and then Skewered probably showed up from the brush behind him?
No, so Skewer was underneath the tower already. Vangstead just Q3'd over the tower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Parkour,
yeah.
So that happened, and now Vangstead's just going to wait in the brush. He does have level 6. He's had it for quite a while now, so he could trade into Skewer. That Cannon Barrage still on cooldown for the Gangplank.
Yeah, pretty lengthy cooldown in the early stages. But honestly, Skewer, pretty happy here to just farm out now. He's made it past that super rough early laning phase. Riven shouldn't...
In quotation marks, super rough.
Yeah, super rough, because, you know, he's actually just been stomping, to be honest with you. And Shkal, maybe you watched game 1.5 and seen what Gangplank is capable of if he gets ahead, and it's just going to take the full tower. And honestly, you know, you would say in some instances, ending a laning phase early can be a little bit detrimental to some top lane matchups. I think this is one of those few instances where it's actually pretty okay. Like, I think Gangplank kind of wants to be out of this lane ASAP. It's going to maybe be a little bit hard. Oh, the Herald took his cannon creep. That's unfair.
You know, Harold said, look, I got you loads of tower plates. I am going to take this cannon.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, just getting bullied. Did take the Krugs. But on the bottom side, whilst all of this happening, Rising Dawn did pick up the second dragon of the game. But the only issue is it's a cloud. So it's not the most... he
did
stopped it from base. He pops the...
Oh, no. Bang said, you are so dead. Flash forward. One more Q.
Wow.
No way.
Okay. Well, Shkal...
Who was baiting who there?
I think the problem is that Shkal didn't actually press all of his buttons in an attempt to kill Riven. Didn't use the Iron Spike Whip or the Red Smite, and now actually Skewer has overextended.
Okay, steals away the Cannon Barrage and walks away.
Oh, yeah, okay. Not bad.
I feel like that's what Denzel has just done this day in this game. He just walked up to people, stolen their ults, refused to elaborate, and just left.
And then just kind of left. And used the Paranoia once. Yeah, that was all about what happened, really. He used it.
You know, it's like trialing a champion. That's what Denzel's doing. He's just like, I wonder what this thing does. Let me just have a go.
Yeah, pretty meaty trade there. It's actually a full-blown commit.
Oh, flash up forward with the ultimate from Fine Forever. Cannon Barrage ticking down, and Fastleg is going to get the kill. Limitless stepping really far forward, gets the kill onto Revelius, and now they look towards Fastleg, but hit by the Aqua Prison. Almost steps in, but the Stormbringer denies the Shurima Shuffle.
Yeah, of course, Thornbringer does stop you from being CC'd during its animation, so able to dodge away from the knockback of Harbo's Ultimate. Otherwise, you would have to imagine he probably dies more times than he doesn't. As now, this is the kind of problem you can run into if you air quotes, end the laning phase early. Skewer's still stuck up here. There's been no shift in lane assignments, and now Skewer's in a 2v1, which, yeah, he's probably dead.
1v3. We take no chances against a Gangplank. In the end, Find Forever wasn't needed, and it is Denzel who picks up the kill onto Skewer.
Yeah, so it's one thing to, you know, pick up all those tower plates, extend the lane. It's another for Skewer to, you know, walk super far up here and, you know, be trying to harass Vangstead underneath his tier 2 when Rising Dawn still have, you know, first move up towards that side of the map, especially once, you know, a play had just been made on the bottom side as well. I think Munster will really need to do something about ensuring Skewer can farm safely. Because at the moment, they have a very strong Lucian and Nami. Harbo is already at 1 item. I think just getting some kind of lane assignment shuffle here. You have Herald coming up quite shortly. But the issue is there's no teleports, so you kind of have to keep your same lane assignments for now. Until you can actually get lane priority to shift.
Munster Rugby now hovering around the bot side by Fat Iron, going up for Shackle. However, the spell shield buys some time, but not quite enough. Fat Iron ends up getting the kill as Shackle just steps too far forward into Rising Dawn's jungle.
Yeah, just kind of dies. Simple as that. No reason to be there. Rising Dawn had, admittedly, just shown 3 members topside, but enough time had already passed for them to respond to a bottom side play and do just that. And now Munster gonna just use the culling to ensure that no, you know, follow-up play occurs, no tower dive, anything of that nature. But you can see Farrell still moving here towards the bottom side of the map. Limitless and Find Forever are just gonna shove in this wave, and that should be a down tower as Denzel looking for some trades. Not really able to find too much outside of the CC. As Harbo dashes away. As a tower will eventually fall to Rising Dawn. And on the top side, there's no cross-map play from Munster, so they're not picking up the Herald. And the neutrals can still continue to go Rising Dawn's way after this reset.
And there's Zolt now going on to Harbour. Paranoia has been used. A 1v2, but he almost gets the kill. There is a burn, but the kill from Fast-Legged will keep Harbour alive. And Munster Rugby pull 1 kill back towards themselves.
Just poor timing from Denzel there. Doesn't know, and now Vangstead looking for an all-in onto Skewer. Does he have the all-in damage? It looks like the answer is just short of no.
He's going for it anyway. Under tower picks up the kill. A cannon barrage will not keep Skewer alive.
Yeah, Skewer just a little bit too stubborn to stick around, and now Vangstead, Q3 of the wall breaks the tether on the fear. Should just be able to make it to safety. Clean play. There's more picks happening.
And the rest of Rising Dawn show up. And it's kind of akin, you know, like someone being bullied at school, that person being Vangstead, and eventually calls his big brothers up to the top lane to help him out.
Yeah, that's definitely what it feels like. I mean, to be fair, Vangstead kind of just runs Skewer down in that particular instance. I feel like Skewer, again, you know, had kind of escaped Vangstead's grasp for a brief moment, but decided to try and step up, clear the wave of the barrel. And because of that, it gives Vangstead the opportunity to just kill him underneath his tower. Cannon barrage isn't really enough to stop that all in. Now, another Herald being picked up by Rising Dawn. They do give over the dragon on the bottom side of the map, but it's just a cloud, so it's not really one that, you know, Rising Dawn are going to feel particularly poorly about, as Denzel was in the pit. Let's see what he can get done. Shakal's falling low.
Find Forever is here as well. Denzel flashing forward. The stolen Emperor's Divide will only find Revelius, but it is still a kill as Harbour uses an Emperor's Divide of his own onto Vangstead, who teleported in, but the Riven will just stick onto this Azir. There is no tower to keep Harbour alive, and Rising Dawn take 2 more kills.
Not only that, you can see Fire Arrow here in the mid lane. Solo as the jungler, dropping the Herald, taking down that mid lane tier 1. Now the rest of Rising Dawn can come join, get a second charge in, maybe even take the tier 2. It's just Shakal and Fast-Legged. There's no wave clear here, no reasonable wave clear to stop this charge from going down. Hell, they could even stick around for a third. Shakal's going to have to get in range to smite it right before he hits the tower, but I'm just not sure he's going to be allowed to. So Rising Dawn get 3 charges, 2 towers. They trade it for the top side tier 2, so Skewer gets a fair chunk of gold into his own back pocket, but the map pressure and priority that this Herald shove can in the future give Rising Dawn is absolutely huge.
And all of a sudden, Rising Dawn now find themselves with a 2k goal lead, having trailed in goal for, I want to say, a large majority of this game. Skewett now at 2 icons, going for essentially the same build that we saw from Lundorf in game 1.5.
Yeah, so this has kind of become the new best build, I think. Traditionally, I've been a bit of a collector hater in most cases. I think you kind of just didn't necessarily have to build it, but now I think in the post-durability patch where people do have more, this is going to sound a bit weird, but having the 40% armor shred on barrels already, then going collector and then going Lord Doms, it kind of just makes you universally blow up everybody. So it's actually pretty okay. And not only that, of course, the execute damage can come in handy with things like the cannon barrages. Vangstead finds Skewer.
Well, it's paranoia. It's a 1v2, but there is so much damage on this Riven. Skewer flashes away, and a parlay to the face to get the shutdown.
Yeah, that's a huge shutdown. 350 extra gold goes into Skewer's back pocket. As Teleport's going to come in. Firel has Flash R, everything in his kit right now. Fastleg is there to help.
Flashing forward is Fat IRL looking for the kill. Good Aqua Prison. Denzel a little bit late to the party. He will get an assist. Hostile takeover. Good spell shield from Shackle. And Shackle and Fastleg continue to run, flashing forward with the Fate Score. They're looking towards our Fast-Legged, but they can't quite get on top. Flashing now on the tower is the Nami Revelia, so showing up the culling will do a fair amount of work to the Renata's health bar, but not quite enough all the while. Harbo in the bottom lane, able to pick up a tower.
Yes, that's the second time Rising Dawn do commit to a play, but Munster are at the very least able to trade it out on the map somewhere. And despite the pretty obnoxious amount of pressure being put out by Rising Dawn, the gold lead doesn't really put much emphasis on that. It's barely over 1,000 or under 1,000. Firel and the rest of Rising Dawn not really been able to get too much. Shikao again just kind of walks forward. He's just going to pay for his life.
And that's the second time he's tried to invade into Fat IRL's jungle and has paid the ultimate price for his sins.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why either in this case. I feel like he should have just been waiting in the wings behind this shove, perhaps. Looking for a paranoia play. The Munster, I think I'm just going to pick this one up. I'm contested. Everybody's on reset timers from Rising Dawn, so mid lane tier 1 in their back pocket. Gold continues to get traded back and forth. I think this is definitely a good time to maybe take a look at the inventories to sort of get a good grip on where everybody is in terms of their items. I mean, top side, that's a Prowler's Claw from Vangstead, so he is really just looking to pretty much like one-shot anything he touches, like this, for example. Yeah,
did
this
he just
looks
cancel the Lucian E?
Yeah, I think he did. So, Prowler's Claw. It's definitely not something we see very frequently on Riven, I feel like. But of course, all of the extra lethality AD with that Black Cleaver, there's so much armor shred there as well. He's just going to one-shot anything he touches. There's no real tank on Munster, and now they're just going towards the Baron Rising Dawn. Munster have their jungler, have a pretty fed gangplank, but what can it do?
Denzel just spots how fast-legged in the Riven. This is going to be able to pick up an easy kill. The Nami never stood a chance. And Munster Rugby can't contest his Baron right now because Denzel is just doing so much work denying any entry. Good Emperor's Divide as Harbour goes in, tries to get a kill onto Limitless, but is unsuccessful. Ooh. That's the crit onto Denzel. And Skewer pulls one back.
Skewer at the very least gets one back, but man, Rising Dawn pick up the Baron. They deny entry from Shakal. Now with this Baron, they're going to probably just go pick up the Dragon just because it's a consolation prize and then look to go siege either the side lanes, mid lane as well, still really relatively low. You have to remember, third charge did come in, and that thing is probably at about 33% health. I think that's how those inhibitor towers work. 33% integers. Get a replay of what exactly went down, because Rising Dawn, they start the Baron, and they know they can. The Cannon Barrage is definitely a little bit irritating to deal with, but on the bottom side, Denzel just finds Fast-Legged out on the approach, and you'll see Denzel goes into the faces of both Skewer and Shakal, kind of just keeps them there. Zonya's to buy a little bit of time, and this dash, Skewer doesn't quite get a pretty good barrel placement on the top side of the map. We did see Harbo try and interrupt, but nothing really happens for him there, and Skewer picks up the kill on the very back end with a nicely placed barrel the second time around.
Rising Dawn with the Baron buff, now just pushing in the bottom lane. Denzel in the mid lane, Fangstead just picking up some Krugs, and then we'll go back to pushing in the top lane and essentially saying to Munster Rugby, we're going to go 1-1-3. How do you answer these pushing waves?
Oh, exactly. And thing is, Fangstead level 16, 2.5 items can basically one-shot anybody, and not only that, Rising Dawn with this Baron, if they feel like there's an angle for it, expect them to just dive, but instead, going for a reset. Happy with that tier 2. They still have a minute and a half left on the Baron. Maybe the idea is to crack open the mid lane, perhaps? I'm not too sure. I feel like they had enough time to stick around there. Maybe I wasn't actually tracking the items. Maybe they just finished up a couple there. Could definitely be the thought process. So look to come back out on the map stronger for the next minute or so. Try and siege up and find something. Instead, hoping a poor soul will step forward. No reason for anybody on Munster to be up that high on the map. And Rising Dawn, I mean, they pick up this Baron, but they're just not really threatening too much. I was expecting a mid lane play, as
that is a paranoia, and I believe it was to try to catch out Denzel, Everfrost, and well, the Abscon not quite enough to get out of the pier, but Denzel's just going to go in. He goes golden. Bangstead now flashing on in, and Bangstead picks up 2 kills in the blink of an eye. Call it ambulance, but not for Denzel. Well, maybe he needs an ambulance because he's dead anyway, but still, Munster Rugby Gaming take a lot of damage. They take a lot of deaths, and the bailout will bail Limitless out of death. One of the few times you actually see that Renata ability being useful.
Yeah, Renata keeps Limitless alive there. Limitless actually waited to tick down before pulling the Rend trigger, and now with 4 members there, the death timers are relatively short, so maybe Munster can come back out, but Rising Dawn, they're going to look for this end right now.
And it's just Shackle left to defend the base. Fast-legged has respawned. Tidal Wave will be able to find a knocker, but again, the bailout keeps Find Forever alive. One more Nexus Tower left standing, but Rising Dawn are so low. Bangstead goes in. He does so much damage. And the final Nexus Tower will fall. 4 more members as a teleport comes through from Denzel, and Harbour and Revelius will not be able to keep their Nexus alive. Rising Dawn will take their 2nd win of the split against Munster Rugby Gaming.
Yep, head-to-head, fully in favor of Rising Dawn, and that could be huge towards the end of the split if things like tiebreakers start to play into effect. And yeah, dominating performance from Rising Dawn eventually definitely looked a little bit scary with, you know, Gangplank in the earliest stages towards the top side, getting a lead in a matchup he really has no right to do so in. But Rising Dawn, the neutral objective, early neutral objective control, really helped them out. And it was all about, to me, that Herald shove in the mid lane where they picked up 2 towers and a 3rd charge onto that mid lane inhibitor tower. And it just felt like Munster never really had anything to do in this game, to be honest with you. They didn't really play towards too much outside of that Gangplank, which they weren't really able to get out of that very long lane early on to try and utilize the power. And I think that was the big issue there for Munster. And I kind of mentioned it very briefly. Taking that tower, pretty nice, can be okay, you know, ending a laning phase, which should be troublesome, but then Gangplank staying in that very long lane, getting caught out 2 times-ish, allowing, you know, Bangstead back into the game on the Riven, which we saw eventually came to fruition, absolutely one-shotting everybody in those team fights.
Yeah, and maybe that's just a curse for Munster Rugby Gaming. Skewer winning unfavorable matchups on Gangplank and then losing game. But sadly, for Munster Rugby Gaming, it will be another loss. So 5 wins and 6 losses for them, whereas Rising Dawn Esports will tie up with Unique in 4th place in the standings. We're going to jump into a short break, and when we return, we'll be getting our winners and losers interviews. So stay tuned.